Well, welcome to the Dream Labs. Dr. Contrast Live here. Hope everything's well with you. I just thought we'd start this program today with a little bit of a bit of a review. And if you notice, the subject matter today is going to be dealing with again just form studies, but this time with sport bottles. I thought I went back over the lessons we did or the sketches we did yesterday, and it began to dawn on me that we got some shear forms here to kind of take care of, but then some of the difficulties we all experience are getting into round forms, such as the one down below here. So I thought it'd be kind of interesting to go back in today and review some of the things that would take care of some of the difficulties we find in doing the process work for round surfaces. Excuse me. And just kind of matter of fact, look at how to pick the geometry up and work with these sketches so we can generate some round shape and form to go with this thing. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time today just going through some of the process work of laying down round shapes and sport bottle just form studies. Again, just generating ideas and sketches based around that very principle and concept here. So let's put that aside for a moment. Again, how do we get the things like this to really kind of work with us and fall in place to be visually correct, at the same time have a bit of a spirit about them that really make a huge difference? So let's take a look at maybe a different approach here, and let's just begin to look at this. So let's get an axle down and begin to put this into place. Get a circle up on top here, and a little bit of wide guy down below here, and then open it up a bit, and then close it back down. Now notice I'm working right around that armature there to hopefully get this thing to work. So we'll come back in and add maybe another one right in through here. Just change a little bit of pace. Let's do this. Get that onto that. Step it out. And just follow that whole geometry right down the line here. Just develop a form. Just come right back in and just shape that thing right up nice and easy. And back in, tighten that down just a bit more, and just looking at, again, how to generate these surfaces. Notice being very animated, nothing's really conclusive or sketch running, just looking at ideas here. So let's kind of put a little bit of this into it now. Let's put a little bit of shape here. Following the center line. And then coming back in and just putting maybe a little bit of a button stop right in through here, just a little bit of a detail piece, and there it is, and it's kind of rendered through it, and then just working this thing up. A little bit more tone in this thing, bring a little bit of reflective quality through it, just to kind of give some transparency. And there's some really quick little sketches here, but I want you to notice, though, as we go through these exercises, when you get into round forms like this, extremely difficult in a sense, because now you're dealing with the fact that, notice, as we start here, look how that circle up on top is extremely tight, but as it goes down, how it opens up dramatically. That's one of the key things about developing with an organic form here, like a bottle form like this. It's really interesting how that begins to take into account. So let's do this. Come back in again, another little sketch here. Let's put a bit of dome to it. Let's come back in and just kind of guesstimate where we are. Just kind of open this up just a bit more and then kind of beef this up just a touch. And come back down to a very minimal and rounder form. Just kind of put this shape in place here. Just a little bit more form to it. A little bit rounder, a little bit more organic, a little bit dome up on top here. Let's put another split line down below here, just like this. Let's come back and add a little bit of drama. Let's just take that shape and kind of curl it back and do this to it. Let's kind of get that little like a hand grip. Let's kind of pull that in. Let's run it across, and do the same thing on this side. Curl that shape in just enough. Now down at the base, let's put a little bit of a secondary piece in through here. And in this case, it's kind of put a light source to this thing. A little bit of tone down below. A bit of shading through here. Into that little finger cut that comes out of that and gives you a little bit more of a grip. Same with this. Into a grip. And then right away, there it is. Now you want to come back in and add a little bit more drama to this thing and make some changes in terms of line weight and so forth. And then come back in through here. Put a tone in this dome. And take that right on down the shape itself. And again, a little more transparency, just really, really quick, lucid little sketches here to kind of get this thing to kind of fall into place for us. Let's open this up a little bit more. Crown this out. Come right back down with the center line. Now we're up in this case, just bring that right in. Bring that right in. Open this up. But again, I want you to notice, again, look how much that circle changes from there to there. It just rounds itself right out. You can prove this very quickly to yourself by just holding up like a paper cup, holding it at eye level, and just dropping it down as you go, and you'll see how that circle changes as it goes away from your line of sight. So let's add this. Let's come back in. Got a little bit of dome on top here again, a little recess. Again, light source indicating from over here. Turn that through. Again, a little more animation on this form itself. Maybe another little secondary rim in through here. Maybe that cuts back and does this, just a touch. That's that. Now let's kind of pick up a center line here. Let's get this guy to really roll here. Let's pick up a point right here. Put a circle in place. Come up. A little bit of a decorative piece in this guy. Run that through. That's where my contact is. And back in and pick up that same shape. Pardon me as I turn this a bit. Just a little touch. Again, here, maybe a little bit of an offset. Real loose, nice quick little sketches here. Nothing conclusive, just looking through the exercise of, again, trying to get this, attempting to get these things to really work well in terms of being very solid when it goes to round surfaces and making those functional things work. So there we are. Excuse me. Let's go back in again. Let's taper it the other way here. Let's go this way. Let's round that out. Just in that place, open that up just a touch, and then come back in and really narrow this thing down. Let's kind of reverse this. And look how much rounder that is now, right down and through there. Now let's go ahead and get the center line in place. I'm going to lay it in the center line, the contour, and pick up a spot here where I'm going to really change the character of this shape. Coming in here and just rolling that right out of there and putting a recess in it, doing the following. Now I'll come back, show where that recess is. Illustrate just a bit of a change of value. Come back up on top here, maybe a little bit of change of pace here. We had 1, 2. And again, the shadow off that base. Notice how that shadow rolls in a radius like so, because this is a round surface underneath. It's going to follow that same conical shape into the base. So it's got a little bit of the shadow in here. I'm going to force that just a bit more. More scalp to it, and through here. And again, look at the difference in really working with just being very lucid, very quick and expressive with these sketches, and just letting some of these round forms really fall into place naturally, and just being nice and direct with these guys, and then just coming back in and just adding some things here as you wanted to add. A little bit more of a recess in this guy. Again, where the light source is, you can put a shadow into this. Again, a more sculpted piece. You added some texture in this guy. Maybe this has a little bit of a grain to it. Just taking your time, indicating just enough of what's happening with these certain shapes. And that's it. There it is, gang. Just very simple little studies here. Let's kind of tie them all together here with a little bit of band line behind it. Good compositional piece here. And there it is, just the first pass at just doing some little thumbnail sketches. based on what we're after in regarding some of the shapes we're dealing with these sport bottles, and just getting a lot more organic with it and having some fun with these guys. So there's maybe the first page here. Let's kind of move along as we go here. There's one. Let's go back in and look at it again. Let's get a nice little center line put in place. Let's come back in, open it up, reverse it, go to a narrow scoop up on top, connect the dots right away around that center line, and come back in. Let's pick up a spot right through here. Open that up. Now in this case, we're going to add a handle graphic. Recess this thing. A little shadow coming off of that side, into the handle, into that little contour that forms surface shape, into this. Again, maybe down through here. Adding a little undercut, and this thing comes out and does that. A little bit of interest to the shape. And again, casting a shadow across that. And again, underneath the rim here, more texture change. And a little bit of tone. Little polar shadow. Indicate where the light source is coming from. A little bit of cheated perspective to get that handle, give a bit more surface to it, so we can see it's got some thickness, just very little, because of the view we're looking at it in. Just a bit more definition. Let me turn this around just for a moment here. Get some line weight change in this thing. Hey, how you doing, Chip? Welcome aboard. Yeah, we're just doing some little water bottle studies here, Chip. And I thought yesterday, I started a conversation in the stream here. Yesterday we did this sketch, a series of these just product forms, much more sheer and sheerer. So I thought we'd go ahead and just come back in and say, we had a little round surfaces here. We worked on some of the organic shapes. So I thought today we'd just go almost a 180 from these sheer pieces to some bottle forms and getting into some round practice and how to generate certain shapes. So I started with that first plate doing one of these little quick and dirty studies on how to generate the circle around an axis, getting that axle to work for you, and then just building some of the shapes around it. But the thing I'm trying to get across here today is how to really use the axis to really change the tempo of the circles you're involved. Look how tight this is, how much more open this is. Same thing here, much and really open. Closed, much more open. So I just started another page here, Chip, to kind of work with here. So thanks for joining us. It's good to have you on board here. I'm just going to get this line weight to kind of move along here for us. Put more tone in this guy, put more shadow into it, and notice again it comes right around that form because that shape is a little bit of radius to it, so it's going to have that character right there. As we come back into it again, a little bit of pattern change. So there's another approach and how this stuff really begins to work, and just putting some really quick, lucid sketches together. Nothing really outstanding. Just getting a hot spot in place and indicating where that's going to go. Maybe a little bit more shadow around this thing. The handle itself, and there's another way to grab that shape off of there and let it work. So what do you think, Chip? Making sense? Jet-powered bottles. Yeah, that sounds good to me. It sounds like a neat deal. Let's go back and just look at some other little form studies here. Let's open this thing up. Really crown this out. There it is. I'm going to give myself a center line here, work through this, and right away drop it right down to the width I want. I'm going to come back in here and create this. And again, a little bit more open, like about right there, and then just connect those dots. really build this shape. That's what we're trying to get across here, Chip. How to build a form and keep it nice and consistent. Again, a little bit of texture change down below. And come up on top. Maybe this is a bit of a recess again, but now it's much more positive. So it's maybe a cap on top of that, which is going to give me a little bit of shadow back in through here and a shadow over here. And again, coming out of this thing. Bit of shadow inside this. Underneath, let me turn this aside here for a bit. Follow the form, notice it's conical, so I'm going to come right back to center line. Let it go from there, and there it is. There it is. So coming along here, in the hot spot again over here. There, well, thanks, Chip. Give it a contour. Again, notice how I'm following the shape here. Shadow into the center line. Let it go. Underneath, a little more shadow up on top here, Chip. Again, and a highlight over there. Now underneath, a little more tone, and then release it towards center line. Basically, what that shape is right here, it's just basically that's a cone or a form, an inverted cone. So I'm coming back in there and really just kind of changing pace with it and allowing the form to read properly. As I come down to this, there's no need to go back any further than these guys. That's just a nice, simple series of little detents in the form itself. Kind of takes care of it. There we are there. A little more animation, kind of transparency, and there it is. So there's another little thumbnail study on where we are here. Just neat stuff. Let's go back in and do the following here. Let's come back in and just do this. Give ourselves a center line. Let's change the pace here. Let's kind of put that in place. Now let's go back in here and create this shape by doing the following. Off of this, construction a little bit wider. Could put a shoulder in this guy now, out to here. Now let's bring it back in. Letting that pen do the job for us. Now let's kind of put this in the context here. There's the actual cap itself. I can come back in through here. At this juncture, put a little detail in this thing. And again, picking a light source, a little bit of shadow over here. Again, through the form. And there it is. I mean, look how much more impact we're getting in those sketches, just because a little bit of shape to it and form. So, what do you think, Chip? Making sense for you here? Shapes are easy to read. Yeah, that's good. Excellent. I appreciate that, Chip. That's what makes this thing sing. Just to kind of go through some very simple surface definition forms here. So let's change pace here. Put a little bit of a build in this thing. Kind of compose it. Let's go back and start another sheet here. Just going to keep the inventory moving here. There we are. Now let's see. Let's go back in here. Just a nice little, nice tall, really good, simple axis. Let's get this guy to come in. And I'm going to keep it nice and tailored. Let's do this. Turn it around the other way. Get that shape to read as best we can. Now through here, let's change the pace. Let's get this in. Here's my center line. Let's bring that on through. Notice I've turned that shape just a bit to the left here to kind of get that center line to work for me. I'm going to come back in here and pick this up. A little bit of a finger grip on this side too. Notice I'm using the contour of the bottle itself to kind of give me some indication as to what I'm going to do as far as detail goes. Over here, and there's another little study, just a very simple volume. Got a lava lamp feel. This one, yeah, kind of interesting. Yeah, lava lamp feel. That's kind of an interesting approach to it, Chip. You got it. So let's see where we are here. I've got 3, 6. So let's see. Let's try one of these. Center line, notice how it shifted over. And kind of rotated the view again. Right down to ground zero. Let's put a bit of a ribbon in this thing. It's going to tone this back just a bit more body to it. There we are. A little bit of contour down below. A little form study there. Interesting. So there we go. There it is, gang. Now let's put one or more in here. Let's just kind of do this where we come back in and say, all right, let's keep it pretty vertical again. Let's really crank this thing back. Put a base on it. Let's come back in and just funnel this thing from that to that. Turn this upside down for a minute. And we'll just put a little bit of heat to this thing. A little more tone. A little bit of texture change. Just enough to give it maybe a grip feel of some sort. There it is, maybe a co-mold insert piece, rubber against the molded plastic part itself. But there you go. These are coming in high-tech bottles. They're cool, yeah. So it's a lot of fun just looking at different changes of pace and how to develop. And the main thing here, gang, for those of you listening here, is just to really get used to the fact that when you get into compound forms or round shapes for like sport bottles, for example, round surfaces are very difficult to do. I like to think in terms of you've got a primary axis, but the more you look at this thing, depending on your relationship or the viewing plane, it's this. If you start out, for example, notice at the very top, it's a very tight circle. Then as it goes down below, it starts to open up. That's the drama of perspective and how it works. So the real main reason for the lesson here today is to really get used to the fact that this stuff has a lot of captivation to it in terms of being able to really build strong forms by understanding how the geometry works and how the perspective functions. So here we go. Start another page here. More here. I'm just exploring shape, nothing more, nothing less. I just want to really make some changes here. Working through the center line. Just exploring shape and geometry, just trying to get the thing to function. Let's get a little bit of weight in this thing, so it's going to do that. I'm going to get a little bit of shading in through here. Width of the handle graphic. Nope. Let's get this guy over here just a bit. Pretty radical form, but nonetheless, it's just exploring shapes and how to begin to develop certain forms. And you notice cone to cone and again to cone, four cones in combination, giving us those kind of forms to deal with here. So interesting stuff. Got your conventional form here. And there you are. Another interesting little shape and surface here. Hey, Doug, how are you? Very cool. Hey, how's it going there, Doug? Good to have you on board. Let me give you a little bit of a backlog here. Just finished that page, just wrapped up that little series of concept sketches. And the primary reason for putting this on today, Doug, is just yesterday we did one of these guys. It was interesting to me. Yesterday we did a lot of just sheer forms, but this round surfaces started to really think, oh, I wonder if people would really appreciate just a few moments spent on how to develop round organic forms and so forth, and then using sport bottles as a form of a springboard to kind of develop some shapes. So that's what I used, Doug, and I started put that sketch together. Then the second plate we did was this one. Then the first plate we did was just a random series of little thumbnail sketches based on where we are with developing form, getting a center line down and working through some things and getting the circles. The most important thing about the lesson here, not the lesson, but the actual stream itself, is notice how the thing changes when you go from top to bottom. Very tight, very open. Very tight, very open. Very tight, very open. And it opens right up. It changes the drama, which really authenticates the process of the sketch. So there was the first plate done there, Doug, just a bit of a review, not to bore you. There's the second plate done, just looking at exploring different shapes and forms and how to handle with them, how to work with them. And then this guy here, third series, going in a little more organic, very some difficult shapes and surfaces to work with. Same principle. Again, notice very tight and very open. Very tight, very open. That's the concept here we're trying to put together. Then the last plate I was doing just extrapolating some of those shapes and getting some of those surfaces out of the form itself. And let's go back in the little thumbnail sketch here and just kind of. A little bit of recess in this guy. Bit of a tone change. Being consistent coming up through the form. Let me clean this up just a bit here, guys. Tie them all together. Well, what do you think, gang? Interesting little studies here. Wait a moment here. Any response so far? I mean, is this helping to get the point across about when you get into organic shape, how really critical it is to pay attention to what those circles are doing? I don't want to turn this into a teaching lesson, but it's more of a stream shot here. But it's interesting how even though you change angles and tempo, the axiom still remains the same. That circle will always open up as you go down and tighten up as you come up toward your eye level. And that's the key right there. So let's just kind of, for what it's worth here, let's kind of switch gears and have some fun with this thing. So what if we did this? Let's go back in and just do the following here. What if we come back in? Okay, how are we coming here, guys? Connect the dots. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to work with this paper. Hey, Doug, are you still there? Hope you haven't bailed out on me here, Chief. I just want to make sure we're communicating nicely here. There it is, a little bit of tone on this guy. Again, just trying to reinforce Look how rapidly I'm working with this marker. Why? Scared to death. That's what's causing it. Just making sure that the whole thing flies. There we are. A little more animation in this guy. We're almost there, gang. Really appreciate your tentativeness here. Let's see if we get this guy to kind of function here. Let's roll this off. Let's get a little more of that into that. A little more of this. A little bit of that into place. And now let's just have some fun with this guy. Let's kind of put this thing in concert here. Give ourselves a little bit of presence in the paper. A bit more high contrast. There you go, gang. How about that? There they are. So, what do you think, gang? Any impact on this stuff coming along all right? That's going to wrap it up for today. I just don't want to bore you to death here with any more additional, unless you've got some questions about how we kind of handle this thing. These are just some very interesting little inspiring shapes here. I thought it'd be a lot of fun to work with and get that geometry down and understand what the circles do in terms of putting together form and shape. But just interesting how it all begins to come together. Again, I just was as a result of at the end of yesterday's stream, I just really felt the need to go back in and get some round architecture back in place. I mean, it just really did not have the same impact that I was hoping it was going to get. Yeah, we did a lot of shear stuff yesterday, but I think over the course of time, I always get a lot of questions based on how to develop round forms. What are you doing? Would you get into some certain shape scenarios that become extremely difficult to work with? And I think round surfaces are extremely difficult to work with. So once again, we started with a very simple palette. Let's work backwards. There's a combination. We were back with some of these guys. That was the last plate we did. Let's put these guys up on screen here together. Notice how they're still the same relationship. If I were to pull some of these guys together, for example, if I were to put a center line through all of these, the same axiom is still operating. Very tight up on top and very open down below. Just really opening the form, the surfaces and the forms up. Again, ballpoint pen studies, real fast and lucid. Let's see. Yeah, those shapes are very interesting and they're easy to read. Yeah, hey, thanks, Chip. That's the purpose. Interesting. That's a great comment you've made there, Chip. And there's a real lesson in that, and that's simply this: that the simpler you keep the form, the more readable they are. Now, you get a lot of complexity. I'm not saying don't be complex, but at the same time, be very careful about how you put these things together, because the more complicated it gets, the more it begins to gum up the works. It just takes some of the drama away from what you're trying to tell the story about. So a great point. There's the last ballpoint sketch we did. Went back into this guy. And again, not worried about functionality, just shape and generating shape and seeing how they begin to work. How to work with the axis, how to work with the circles, how to keep the round surfaces generated, drawing through it, being very animated, not so much being controlled, but very organized lucidity. How's that? That's another term we could kind of coin here. Now back into this guy, and another plate we did with just some series of things, adding a handle, changing the shape and the modulation of the forms, but still getting the thing to read. Then the first one we started with just a nice series of organic shapes. And we went, let's start here with this whole process of working with an axis and get this thing to function for us here. And then it all started with this. This is where we started yesterday. That sketch, this one right here, was the one that I looked at after I finished a stream yesterday about getting into just product design form studies. A lot of roundness in terms of how to generate these shapes. So I thought, well, let's go back in today, for today, and dedicate this whole idea of how to work with organic shapes, how to develop round surfaces. Now I realize that sport bottles are a little bit of a simple, easy form to deal with, but they can be very tricky. You can get a lot of proportion changes if we're not handling it correctly. And I think that was the rationale behind going into this lesson today. So all that to say that we're wrapping it up here today, gang. And there it is. There's a fine little series of little tone paper sketch on some volumetric studies. And Doug, if you're still there, what do you think? You're in? Thanks, Chip. I mean, that's very good. I'm really glad you've joined the forces here. Good input, and I hope it's making sense for you, Chip. Hey, very good, Chip. Thanks for joining us. Take care of yourself and have a great day. All the very best, and thank you. Well, that kind of sums it up for the day, gang. I just want to take a moment to thank you very much for the time spent here. And those of you who are tuning in, and those who might be watching at another date, please feel free to join my, take a look at my website at drcontrast.com. Hey, thanks, Doug. Good to have you on board still. Yeah, there's a lot to learn here. And I think I'm really kind of putting together some final pieces here on just making some transitions. Some days I'll be teaching, some days I'll be just generating ideas such as this. And again, this was a result of coming in yesterday with that series of product sketches and then turning it right around and going into the 180 and going into round forms. How do you deal with circles in volumetric shapes such as this? So please pass along the word, Doug. If anybody's interested in joining the stream, pass the word along. I'd appreciate it. I want to build my audience, and it's great to have you on board, Doug. As we go out today, please take a peek at my website, drcontrast.com. Some new things are coming, good lesson plans there, and hopefully by I think next week or February, the first or second week of February, Doug, I'm going to start putting together an intermediate series on just 5 or 6 quick lessons on transportation design and into product, into architecture. So I'm starting going to add to the website, so it'll be interesting. Go to the website, take a peek at it. The lessons are there. Also, the other interesting thing about the website is that we've got a store up now with prints and so forth, and we're adding to that. And just a nice break. So once again, thank you so much, gang. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to drop me a note at jim@drcontrast.com if there's something you want me to cover. Also, again, I really do appreciate you being on board. And again, I hate to be redundant, but I want to build this audience and make a real impact for those of them. If I can help those, great. That's what the challenge is. And if I've done something right here today, please let me know. If I've done something wrong, tell me. I want to make sure we're communicating clearly and getting a lot of mileage out of this thing. So a lot of fun today, gang. Just turning around and going to some really lucid sketches, getting back to basics in a sense, basic fundamentals about how to put together very simple yet perhaps challenging sometimes sport bottles. Hope you have a great rest of the day and a terrific weekend. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 2:30, same time. And I'll be live again next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll keep you posted on the times and the like. So once again, thank you so much. I always sign off with this because I think it's the most critical part of the whole stream, because I really sincerely mean it. Never forget to remember to dare to be great, because you are. Thanks very much, gang. All the best, and take care. Bye-bye.